There's this feeling that Boruto has finally stopped being a character who just gets new powers handed to him on some kind of schedule. And that's exactly why I think Boruto's next level isn't just about massive Otsutsuki power. It's about the ability to use someone else's strength better than the original owner ever could. The biggest mistake people make when talking about Boruto is treating his growth like a simple stat increase. I know Momoshiki gave him access to insane reserves of energy, the ability to absorb techniques, and abilities no ordinary shinobi could ever touch. But Boruto isn't copying Momoshiki's style. Momoshiki was used to crushing opponents through sheer natural superiority, absorbing their chakra, and firing back with something even bigger. Boruto, though, operates completely differently. That's exactly why we shouldn't think of karma as some kind of power-up button. It cracked open the door to the Otsutsuki world, but on its own, it never taught Boruto how to actually fight. Think back to Naruto. Kurama's chakra was massive, but mastering it took discipline and a whole lot of mistakes along the way. With karma, the situation is even more dangerous, because what's inside Boruto isn't just a pool of energy, it's a personality capable of hijacking control. After years of training, Boruto has only recently managed to turn this forced inheritance into his own personal fighting system. But the price for that power hasn't been paid yet. This is where his difference from Momoshiki really shows. Boruto combines Otsutsuki chakra with shinobi skills, sensory abilities, swordsmanship, and space-time techniques. In the manga, he doesn't come across as someone who just pulls out one overpowered trump card. He's more like a player who keeps rewriting the rules of the battlefield whenever he possibly can. Even his sword matters as more than just a weapon. It forces Boruto to fight more precisely, up close with his opponent, instead of falling back on solving everything with one giant Rasengan explosion. That style feels more mature and more human, which paradoxically might end up being stronger than pure divine power. The best example of this is Rasen Uzuhiko. To me, it's one of the most beautiful moments in this new story arc, because Boruto isn't just powering up the Rasengan, he's changing the entire philosophy behind the technique. He's making the world itself fight on his behalf. Uzuhiko might actually be proof of a much bigger evolution. If Boruto has already learned to use the planet's own motion as a combat resource, then the next step doesn't necessarily have to be some brand new chakra mode. It's possible he'll start combining multiple power sources without any internal conflict. Karma and Momoshiki's abilities, the planet's rotation, his sensory perception, and his space-time movement. If that happens, his progress won't look like some flashy new aura appearing. It'll look like the boundaries between his individual skills simply disappearing. What's especially interesting here is his own version of the Flying Thunder God technique. Boruto takes this legendary jutsu and adapts it to fit his own abilities. He's building his own kind of mobility within the limits of what he can do. And honestly, I think that approach could lead him to create something completely new. This shift in mindset shows up most clearly in how Boruto treats his own resources. The old generation of shinobi spent years building up their chakra, while the Otsutsuki just drained it straight out of entire planets without ever thinking twice about efficiency. Boruto, though, becomes the first fighter to take that massive godlike potential and run it through the strict economy of shinobi thinking. He doesn't waste energy on flashy displays or giant transformations every move he makes. Every pulse of karma, every jump with the Flying Thunder God technique is calculated with pinpoint precision. This isn't just shinobi style anymore, and it isn't just Otsutsuki dominance either. It's a complete hybrid combination, where the discipline of a shinobi turns a chaotic, god-level power into a genuinely dangerous weapon. Picture a fight where Boruto doesn't even need to plant metal markers ahead of time. He can just see the flow of chakra itself, instantly move between points, strike, and then lock the enemy down with a continuous attack. On top of that, karma lets him absorb their techniques, while Momoshiki's abilities give him knowledge that no ordinary shinobi could ever have. What makes this combination so terrifying isn't any single piece of it, it's the fact that the enemy doesn't even have time to figure out what they're actually up against. In that sense, Boruto is carrying on the tradition of the best characters. Shikamaru beat opponents through preparation, not chakra reserves. Minato turned space itself into a weapon. Sasuke combined analysis, eye techniques, and cold, calculated improvisation. Naruto kept finding ways to turn his limitations into an advantage. Boruto pulls all of these ideas together and adds his own Otsutsuki nature on top. His edge isn't that he's stronger than any of them individually, it's that he inherits all these different ways of thinking and combines them in one body. Of course, there's a weak point here, and we can't just brush past it. Sometimes the manga pushes Boruto's growth forward a little too fast. After the time skip, he already has techniques that used to be considered the peak of mastery, and that can leave some fans feeling frustrated instead of impressed. We never actually get to see all those training days, so a lot of it just isn't clear to us. That's exactly why it matters so much for future chapters to show the process, not just the result. In the latest chapters of Two Blue Vortex, the tension isn't really built around a simple who's stronger question. Boruto doesn't just need raw power, he needs to learn how to operate with incomplete information, and that's what makes his growth genuinely interesting. At the same time, Momoshiki might not just be an internal threat. He's tied to danger, to the Otsutsuki legacy. Momoshiki lived long before the history of Boruto's shinobi world even began, and he knows more about the Ten Tails, other dimensions, and karma than any ordinary shinobi ever could. Even when he's staying quiet or trying to manipulate the situation, the simple fact that he's there gives Boruto access to the Otsutsuki clan. And this is where the most interesting conflict comes in. Boruto doesn't have to become a copy of Momoshiki, and he doesn't have to get rid of him completely either. A much stronger route is one where our hero learns to control that power without letting the personality inside him take control instead. In that case, Momoshiki stops being just a parasite and becomes something dangerous but genuinely useful. If that scenario plays out, Boruto ends up with a combination that Momoshiki himself never had. Otsutsuki power, human emotions, new techniques, shinobi experience, discipline, and the ability to adapt on the fly. Momoshiki was born into that system, so he treats it like a natural-born right. Boruto got pulled into it against his will and had to learn how to survive inside it. I think Boruto's next major evolution isn't going to need some brand new chakra mode. I know a lot of people really want to see some flashy visual upgrade, but the real peak is going to be a lot simpler than that. Perfect synchronization. Boruto won't be activating Karma separately, then Uzuhiko separately, then the Flying Thunder God technique separately. He'll start thinking through all of these abilities at once, and using the Byakugan too, which now belongs to him. Of course, that kind of control has to come with a price. One of them represents pure Otsutsuki power, built up over centuries. The other represents Otsutsuki power that a human being is learning to understand, limit, and direct. That doesn't automatically make Boruto unbeatable. If anything, his humanity brings doubt, attachments, and responsibility along with it. But those exact qualities are what let him see a fight, not as the strong simply devouring the weak, but as a challenge where choices and consequences actually matter. Boruto is gradually turning someone else's inheritance into a language all his own. Momoshiki gave him the power, Karma opened the door, the planet gave him Uzuhiko, and his shinobi experience taught him how to think. If he really manages to bring all of that together, what we'll get isn't a new Otsutsuki, it'll be something this world has never seen before. So now I want to know what you think. Should his next upgrade be some brand new form, or would it actually make a lot more sense to show him gaining total mastery over the arsenal he already has? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit subscribe, and smash that like button. See you in the next video.